Hello, 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 and welcome to this edition of Office Hours with Lanora. I know I'm a little behind. I had to work through an issue with a student on a phone call, so please forgive my delay. I decided to come outside today since we're doing the home edition of Office Hours with Lenora and take a break and get some vitamin D and get questions answered, as well as be available to provide information. So, one of the most important decisions that a potential real estate professional will make is to learn about what description or how will they be categorized in terms of the services that they provide. Today, our topic of discussion will be independent contractor versus employee. So, what's the difference, what that means, how applicable or how that works in the field of real estate as a whole. I definitely think that this is that area of real estate if you're considering a change in a career or actually just doing real estate on a part-time basis. You want to know what description or category you will fall under. For the state of Illinois, and you guys know I only talk about Illinois because for licensure purposes, that's that's what the school will teach. For the state of Illinois, there are a couple of categories. It would be employee, and the second category would be independent contractor. Now, there may be other terminology that's used, but because you know I do my research, I wanted to make sure in real estate for the state of Illinois, as a real estate broker, you will be termed an independent contractor. Independent contractor. So let's go over what an independent contractor is. We all know Lenora does her research and just from previous experience. Independent contractor. It's a person or an entity contracted to perform work or provide services to another entity as a non-employee. An independent contractor must pay their own Social Security and medical taxes. There are some other synonyms that may be associated with the word independent, the words independent contractor. You may have heard them also called self-employed individuals, freelancers, 1099ers, liberal professionals, or independent service providers. All mean the same thing. In a nutshell, the way that it's broken down between the actual independent contractor and the employee is a little further investigation or research that I've done. A business may pay an independent contractor and an employee for the same or similar work. But there are important legal differences between the two, and this is what is most important. An employee for a company will have withholdings. So if any of you are currently working as an employee of a company, they hold your taxes. They also might provide a benefits package to you. Health care, dental, life insurance, supplemental insurance. That way, that particular person has to be or answer to and be accountable for maybe clocking in. You might have a regular work schedule, which could be 9 to 5, 8:30 to 4:30, 10 to 6, whatever the case may be. You will probably have someone that you have to answer to. And that might be a supervisor or a manager of a department, of an office, of the company, the CEO, the president, whatever the term is. Whereas an independent contractor, the company does not withhold taxes of any sort or provide a benefits package to this said individual. Employment and labor laws also do not apply to independent contractors. So we'll visit that one in just a few quick seconds. When we talk about labor laws, there are going to be some benefits that employees will receive in terms of labor laws that provide protections to them that an independent contractor would not. Y'all, I'm sitting out here and I just heard a woodpecker. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, love sitting outside. Let's go over some factors that determine the degree of control. When I speak of degree of control, that means not necessarily somebody controlling you per se, but the amount of liability or reliability that you have towards said company, which helps determine if you are an employee or an independent contractor. One of them is, does the company control or have the right to control what the worker does and how the worker does the job? So when we're trying to define if a person is an independent contractor, freelancer, 1099, whatever term they want to use, or versus an employee, these are some factors that you should take into consideration. Another one is, does the company control the business aspect of the worker's job? Can that company tell you that you're going to have to use this software, work in the office during this time for this many hours out of the day? It also includes how you get paid, whether expenses will be reimbursed to you, or who provides the necessary tools or supplies. So most times independent contractors are going to provide everything for themselves. So if you are using a laptop or you need the use of a laptop, you'll probably be purchasing that. Whereas if you're an employee of a company, said company might have a desk with either a laptop or a desktop available for you to use during your work schedule. Another one is there a written contract or employee benefits, such as a pension plan, insurance, or vacation pay? Independent contractors, you don't get that. That's pretty much you decide if today is going to be a work day or not, or will I be taking that trip to Punta Cana and I don't have to log in for the day. Whereas an employee of a company, most people receive an offer letter, and that offer letter will be descriptive of what that compensation plan looks like and any other benefits that are offered before an employee begins working for an employer. Another one, a factor to determine the degree of control, would be, will the relationship continue, and is the work a key aspect of the business? So the relationship between an employer and an employee, you may have heard of at-will employment, where for any reason a relationship between an employer and employee can be terminated. This type of relationship, what they're describing here as a factor, can be ongoing. For example, do you just show up to work as long as you're doing your job and you haven't been reprimanded for any reason or sort, and your employee reviews are stellar, extraordinary, and you continue to work every day until maybe the company goes out of business or something like that. I don't know. Whereas an independent contractor, there is a service or a job that is done. And at the end of that service or that job, the relationship is terminated. It ends. Okay? The Internal Revenue Service uses a right to control test to assess a business's tax liability. So each state also has a test to determine a person's status under workers' compensation and unemployment insurance laws. The degree the worker is economically dependent upon the business will determine the degree of control test. So the degree of work, the scope of work, what you're doing in the capacity of that work helps to determine the degree of the control. Let's go over some of the descriptions or the differences between these types of relationships from let's do employee first, and then we'll compare that to the independent contractor. So for example, when it comes to tax documents, an employer will provide an employee with the employee will provide the employer with their name, their social security number, their tax filing status, and you will complete a W-4. Whereas an independent contractor, they just need to provide their name, their address, and their taxpayer identification. And they're going to fill out a W-9 for that independent contractor document. Another one where payers' tax reporting requirements will include, like I said, you as an employee, you have to report all earnings that you've earned, and that's going to be reported through your job. At the end of the year, they're going to give you a form that you'll need to take to your tax preparer, and it will show any sort of compensation that you've received, including your pension plan, on your tax document. That's the W-2. With the at the end of the year for the independent contractor, they're going to receive that 1099 for services provided. In the world of real estate, that 1099 will come from the real estate office that you work with, that you partner with. It's going to come from the processing department at that real estate office. So remember, as you're closing your transactions, you're going to get paid a commission, and that commission funnels from the seller through the close of that transaction, through the title company, which then cuts the check to the real estate office that you work with or partner with. And then that real estate office will take what we call in the business a split, whatever that split is. I don't get it anybody's business in terms of how much they get paid, but whatever the split is, that will then funnel whatever's remaining or to be paid to the independent contractor, quote unquote, the broker, will funnel to that person at that time. But at the end of the year, they're going to receive a formal 1099 to show what they've earned over the course of that year, that tax year. An employee, in terms of the value of work or of that contract, an employee would receive either a salary, they would be paid hourly, they might be paid bi-weekly, every week, weekly. So it just depends how the agreement was set up with their employer. A contractor or independent contractor will be paid a total amount. So that's why you'll have independent contractors that receive lump sum checks. No taxes are withheld out of those checks for independent contractors. On the flip side, for an employee, taxes, benefits, for insurance, for 401k, for dental, transit benefits, all of those can be withheld by the employer for the employee. Finally, when it comes time to get paid, we want to know how everybody gets paid at this point, I'm sure. But when the time comes to be paid, an employee's pay period must remain the same. You can't go to paying an employee every week to now paying them once a month or once a year. It has to be consistent. Now, the exclusion to that is if you're like changing payroll processing systems. We all know about ADP. So if you're changing from one, maybe it was in-house where someone was processing the payroll checks in the actual office for the employees, to now ADP, a big company, is doing it. And instead of the individual processing everything every week, now they may have outsourced that service to ADP, and now ADP is processing everything at an agreed upon time between the employer and ADP services to every 2 weeks now. An independent contractor is paid through accounts payable. They don't get paid through the traditional ADP systems that an employee would. Accounts payable would provide that payment directly to them in the form of that lump sum check. Okay? So now we've learned about the differences between the independent contractor as well as, i.e. the broker, as well as the employee of several different companies. How does that make you feel? What changes does that make you think about that you may need to make? I'll tell you one thing, that when I flipped from traditional employee-employer relationship to becoming full-time real estate broker, probably want to have some savings in mind. You want to make that leap or that change as minimal as possible in terms of interruptions. I often pay a few of my bills automatic payments. So we want to make sure that that doesn't cause an interruption to those things that you still have to take care of, like maybe your phone or the mortgage or pretty consistent bills, that a car note or something like that. You want to make sure you have some savings of some sort in mind to cover those as you're switching from an employee to independent contractor. Can you be an employee of a company as well as have a real estate license and also be an independent contractor? Of course you can. People do it all the time. I know a bunch of folks. I was one. I know a bunch of police officers and teachers and firefighters and everyday 9-to-5 individuals that go to work every day, and then they do real estate part-time. And whatever they close on their transactions, they're paid through the real estate company. And if they work their 9-to-5 for the 2 weeks or however long, they're paid for their services through their employer. Okay, I have a question here. Ms. Cheryl wants to know, is there a certain amount of time you have to work under a sponsoring broker? Hi, Cheryl, first of all. Yes, there is a specific amount of time, especially in the very beginning. Once you earn your real estate license, the state of Illinois, IDFPR, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulations, which is the regulating body for the real estate industry and other industries that offer licenses, Cheryl, that entity has stated that the first 2 years that you have your license active, you are required to be sponsored by a sponsoring broker, which is that real estate company that you're going to be partnering with. So the answer to that is yes, a minimum of 2 years. 2 years. Then after those 2 years are up, Cheryl, you know, we talked about a lot of this, and one of those things that we didn't talk about was after 2 years of being sponsored, let's say you earned your license this year. So in 2022, in June of 2022, you're considering maybe becoming a managing broker. And you want to come back to school here at the Realtors Real Estate School, and you want to earn that managing broker's license. After 2 years, you're not required to be formally sponsored by that sponsoring broker, but you will always be under the protection of that sponsoring broker's umbrella. So even if you become a managing broker and you stay with that company, or you venture off and do your own thing, you're no longer required to be quote unquote sponsored directly as you would be for those first 2 years, but you're still under the protection and the covering of that sponsoring broker. One more question. Cheryl also wanted to know, when setting up an emergency fund, approximately how many months should you save for? That's going to be up to you, Cheryl. That's going to be up to you, because only you know. I don't know your financial situation. My glasses keep falling, y'all. I don't know your financial situation. I don't know if you're in a situation where you got 2 bills to pay a month or you have multiple bills. I don't know if there's any additional streams of income that might be coming in for you. Only you would know that. Ideally speaking, and it may be hard for some because we're in a pandemic state. Unfortunately, some folks have lost or been downsized because of the pandemic. You might, if at all possible, I would say save the maximum amount that would not interrupt any of your current outgoing bills and afford you the ability to put something to the side to save. You know, we talked about this, Cheryl, to pay yourself first. So you want to make sure that you get to pay your bills as well as you get to put something to the side for you. I would probably do about 6 months worth of savings. And that savings would be enough to cover me, 6 months or more, I should say, would be enough to cover my bills just in case as a new broker I didn't have a closing. Use it as an emergency fund. Don't go dipping in the reserves to buy a purse or get your hair done or, you know, to buy lunch. You want to leave that alone and act like you don't see it. Okay? Good questions. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Well, we have reached the end of this topic for Office Hours with Lanora, the home edition. As you all know, I tell you about what's upcoming. So upcoming are some additional broker as well as leasing agent courses. Let's see what comes first. The 23rd and 24th of this month, June, so June 23rd and 24th, next week, we will offer a webinar format for the leasing agent, residential leasing agent course, which is 15 hours in length. So next Tuesday and Wednesday, June 23rd, 24th, residential leasing agent webinar will start. It's $240 for that webinar. So 2 days, 9 a.m. to 4:30 on both days. Hope that you can join us. Feel free to give me a call or an email or directly go to the website and register for that course. After that one, we will have June 29th. We'll start an accelerated broker course. The accelerated course is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. for 2 weeks. It takes 10 days to get all the 75 hours that's required done, and then hopefully shortly thereafter you can go and move on to take your licensing exam. Next evening session will start for us in July, so July 6th, broker course, and it would be 3 nights, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays per week, 5:30 till 9:15. I hope you all remember that we are offering a special for those webinar courses right now with a no risk guarantee included. The webinar experience used to be $704. It's now $599. And that no risk guarantee simply means this: as long as you do not go over 50% of the course, and you might start a webinar, let's say the one on the 29th, and 2 days later you're like, this is not a good fit for me, it might be moving a little too fast for me, let's talk, because I can then move you with your permission and agreed upon to a different webinar that might work better and move a little slower. Or we can then move to just outright, if you say it's just not going to work for me and you haven't gone over 50%, money back guaranteed, full refund at that. So I thank you all for taking your time to spend with me here in my backyard, in my virtual workspace. And I might stay out here today to kind of soak up some additional sun and get my work done. But thank you again for joining me on this Office Hours with Lanora. Ta-ta for now.